Welcome to our channel, where every story brings a new adventure to your screen. Today, we have something truly special lined up for you. We'd love to hear where you're watching from, so drop a comment below and let us know. Your thoughts and feedback mean the world to us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our heartwarming stories. Join us again tomorrow for another unforgettable tale. Let's dive into today's story together. The Secret Life of the Garbage Man No One Knew. In the quiet, suburban town of Brooksville, life seemed to follow a predictable routine. People went about their daily tasks, and the streets were filled with the usual hum of life, always the same. But for 8-year-old Sophie Martin, one ordinary afternoon was about to become anything but. She stood outside her house, dressed in her favorite pink dress, eagerly watching Mr. Robert Jackson, the neighborhood sanitation worker, as he collected the trash. He wasn't like the other adults. He always smiled, even though he was often overlooked. Sophie had always noticed him, despite the fact that no one really spoke to him beyond a polite wave. As she stood there, her eyes sparkled with innocent excitement. She tugged at her mother's sleeve, her voice filled with curiosity. "Mom, can I invite Mr. Jackson to my birthday party tomorrow?" Her mother, taken aback, glanced at the man who had worked in their neighborhood for years. He was just the garbage man, someone whose presence was part of the daily background, never truly acknowledged. But Sophie didn't see him that way. To her, he wasn't just the man who picked up the trash. He was someone who smiled every day, someone who was always there. "I don't know, sweetheart," her mother replied, hesitant. "Sometimes people have work, and they might not be able to come." But Sophie wasn't deterred. She had made up her mind, and with her small hands clasped together in determination, she ran over to Mr. Jackson, calling out with a sweet, hopeful voice, "Mr. Jackson, will you come to my party tomorrow?" The man looked up, his tired eyes lighting up with surprise. It had been a long time since anyone had invited him to a celebration, and in that moment, Sophie's sincerity broke through the walls of routine and exhaustion. "Well, Miss Sophie," he chuckled softly, tipping his cap, "I don't think I've been to a birthday party in a long time, but if you want me there, I'll be there." Sophie beamed with joy. She knew, in her innocent way, that she had just done something meaningful. Tomorrow, Mr. Jackson would come to her birthday party, not just as the sanitation worker, but as a guest, a friend. Little did she know, her simple act of kindness would soon change the way everyone saw Mr. Jackson, and in turn, change the entire neighborhood. The next day, the air was filled with the sound of laughter and chatter as Sophie's birthday party kicked off in full swing. Her backyard was transformed into a lively space, filled with excited children running around, parents chatting over drinks, and colorful decorations hanging in the trees. Yet, through all the noise and excitement, Sophie kept glancing toward the gate, her heart filled with anticipation. Would Mr. Jackson really show up? Her mother, standing nearby, noticed her daughter's restless gaze and sighed, a slight hint of worry crossing her face. She knelt down beside Sophie and whispered, "Sweetheart, I'm sure he has work to do. Maybe he won't be able to make it." But Sophie, with her innocent belief that kindness could change everything, simply nodded and waited. "He'll come, Mom," she said with unwavering certainty, her eyes still glued to the gate. As time ticked by, the party continued, but Sophie's focus never wavered. Her friends were having a blast, but to her, nothing was more important than the simple promise she had made to herself and to Mr. Jackson. Her mother, on the other hand, couldn't help but feel a little skeptical. She had grown used to the idea of Mr. Jackson being the silent figure who picked up the trash every week, just another face in the background. She couldn't imagine him stepping out of that role. Then, just as the last of the guests were nibbling on cake and laughing, something happened. The quiet chatter in the backyard died down as the sound of the gate creaking open pierced the air. Sophie's heart skipped a beat. There, standing in the doorway, was Mr. Jackson, but not in his usual worn-out uniform. Instead, he was dressed in a neatly pressed suit, looking almost unrecognizable. He stood there, a little awkward at first, before stepping forward with a warm, kind smile that reached his eyes. The guests froze, their conversations halting as they looked at him in surprise. Sophie, wide-eyed with joy, dashed forward, her little feet carrying her quickly toward him. "Mr. Jackson, You came, she exclaimed, her face lighting up with a smile that seemed to brighten the entire yard. Behind him, a sleek black car pulled up, and two well-dressed men stepped out, each holding a large gift-wrapped box. Gasps spread through the crowd. Who was this man? What was going on? It wasn't just Mr. Jackson's unexpected arrival that stunned everyone. It was the mystery that followed him, an unknown side of the humble garbage man that no one had ever imagined. The party, once filled with simple chatter, now stood on the edge of a revelation. As Mr. Jackson stepped into the backyard, all eyes were on him. The transformation from the familiar garbage man in his worn-out uniform to a sharply dressed man in a suit was enough to make everyone take notice. The quiet murmurs began to ripple through the crowd, and Sophie's excitement was palpable as she watched him with wide, glowing eyes. She didn't care about the raised eyebrows or the shocked glances. To her, Mr. Jackson was just her friend, the person who had promised to come to her birthday party, and now he was here, standing in front of her like a guest of honor. The guests, however, were another story. Whispers began to spread, each person trying to figure out who this man really was. A few exchanged confused looks, unsure of what to make of this unexpected guest. Why had Mr. Jackson shown up dressed like this? And who were the two well-dressed men behind him, carrying large gift-wrapped boxes? The air was thick with questions, and the once joyful atmosphere of Sophie's party began to shift to one of curiosity, even unease. Mr. Jackson noticed the growing tension in the air and chuckled, rubbing the back of his head as if preparing to break a long-kept secret. He had never expected his simple invitation to lead to this kind of attention. But here he was, standing before an entire group of neighbors, all questioning the man they thought they knew so well. Slowly, he turned to face them, clearing his throat. "Guess there's no hiding it now," he said with a grin, his voice steady but filled with a certain weariness. "You all know me as the garbage man, but what most of you don't know is that I was once the CEO of a successful company. I stepped away from that life a few years ago, left the money, the title, the pressure behind, and took a job that allowed me to feel real, to do something that made a difference, even if no one really noticed. And Sophie?" He paused, his voice softening. "She's the first person in years who's seen me as more than just the guy who picks up your trash. She saw me as a friend. That means more than you all can imagine." The crowd fell silent. It was as if a weight had settled over them, and in that moment, the realization hit them hard. They had all ignored Mr. Jackson. As Mr. Jackson's words sank in, the air in the backyard grew heavy with tension. Sophie stood there, her small hands clasped together, watching the scene unfold. Her innocent gesture of inviting Mr. Jackson to her birthday party had unintentionally unraveled a story no one had expected. The neighbors, once filled with curiosity, now stood in stunned silence, processing the revelation that the man they had passed by every day was not just a sanitation worker, but a former CEO, a person who had left the high-powered world behind to find something deeper and more meaningful. Sophie's father, who had been watching the unfolding drama with a skeptical look on his face, couldn't hold back any longer. His curiosity, mixed with disbelief, pushed him to speak. He stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with uncertainty. "Mr. Jackson, I have to ask, why did you never tell us? Why didn't you let anyone know?" Mr. Jackson smiled softly, the years of experience and wisdom reflected in his eyes. He took a step forward, addressing the crowd, his tone more reflective now. "It's not about what I've done or where I've been. I didn't need recognition. I wanted to live in a way that mattered to me, where I could see the faces of the people I was helping, not just hear the applause. And when Sophie invited me to this party, I realized she was the first person to see me for who I really was, beyond the job I do. She didn't care about my past or my title. She just saw me as someone worthy of kindness and friendship." The crowd remained quiet, processing Mr. Jackson's story. Their collective embarrassment hung in the air like a thick fog. They had never asked, never wondered. All those years of passing him by, treating him as just the man who picked up the trash, they had missed the heart of the man standing before them. Sophie's mother, her eyes brimming with tears, knelt down beside her daughter. She pulled her close, her voice breaking with emotion. "Sweetheart, you've taught us all a lesson today, a lesson in kindness and in seeing people for who they truly are." Sophie smiled up at her mother, her heart full of warmth. She hadn't known the impact of her invitation, but now she saw the change it had brought. Mr. Jackson wasn't just the garbage man anymore. He was a friend, a person with a history, a purpose, and a heart full of gratitude. As the neighborhood slowly began to realize the true worth of the man they had taken for granted, Sophie's simple act of kindness had shifted their perception, forever altering the fabric of their community. The atmosphere in the backyard was slowly beginning to change, as if the very air had been altered by Mr. Jackson's revelation. The guests, who had once viewed him as little more than the neighborhood garbage man, now saw him through a different lens. The man who had quietly picked up their trash every week was revealed to be someone far more complex, someone who had chosen humility and a deeper connection to life over power and status. The shift was subtle, but it was undeniable. They had learned, perhaps too late, that true worth wasn't measured by titles or wealth, but by the kindness and integrity a person showed. As the party continued, a new sense of respect began to settle over the crowd. Sophie's mother, wiping away a tear, stood up, her voice trembling but filled with admiration. "You've changed our whole perspective, Mr. Jackson," she said, looking at him with newfound appreciation. "We never truly saw you before. Thank you for teaching us what really matters." Mr. Jackson, his face softening with a humble smile, nodded. "I didn't expect to teach anyone anything. I just wanted to be a good person. But sometimes it takes a child, someone who hasn't learned to judge, to remind us all of what really counts." Sophie's eyes shone brightly as she hugged Mr. Jackson again, her small arms wrapped around his waist. To her, he was just her friend, the man who had shown up when no one else thought to. But to the rest of the neighbors, he had become something more, a symbol of quiet strength, humility, and the importance of seeing people beyond their surface roles. As the afternoon wore on, the neighbors who had once only nodded in passing began to approach Mr. Jackson with handshakes, smiles, and words of gratitude. The once cold and distant community began to thaw, warmed by the recognition of a man who had lived among them, unnoticed and unappreciated, yet always there, quietly doing his part. It wasn't just the party that had changed things, it was the lesson that followed. In the days that followed, the community's perception of Mr. Jackson was forever transformed. No longer was he just the garbage man. He was a friend, a neighbor, and a reminder that it's never too late to change how we see the people around us. Sophie's simple, innocent invitation had done more than we hope today's story touched your heart as much as it did ours. Sophie's simple, kind-hearted gesture of inviting Mr. Jackson to her birthday party turned into something truly extraordinary. It reminds us all that kindness can change the way we see the world and the people around us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think this story teaches us about how we view others? Have you ever had a moment where a small act of kindness made a big difference in someone's life? We invite you to share your experiences in the comments below. Your stories could inspire others, just like Sophie's invitation inspired her whole neighborhood to rethink their assumptions. Let's create a space here where we can all reflect on the power of kindness and the importance of seeing people for who they truly are. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. More heartwarming and thought-provoking stories are coming your way, and we don't want you to miss out. Thank you for being part of this wonderful community. Your engagement means so much to us, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Keep spreading kindness and love, and let's continue to share stories that remind us all of the magic in everyday life.